Hi guys, this is Rahul Sahay from myview.rahulnavy.net, which is my blog. And in today's agenda, I have clean architecture. So we will be starting with clean architecture, and then we'll see that how to get started with clean architecture first of all, and then how to apply microservices on top of that. So before getting started, let's quickly jump about. Let's talk about me, like what I do and where I belong, basically. So I work for a company called Kongsberg Digital, and here in Kongsberg Digital, we strive to create technology of tomorrow and do digitalization, for some of the biggest industries in the world, like maritime, oil and gas utilities. So we also work on solutions like industrial IoT platform, digital twin, real time monitoring solutions for drilling operations, etc. With an aim to provide right information at the right time and turning the information into valuable resource. This is what I basically do here at Kongsberg Digital. And regarding me, like if you have any questions regarding my articles, blogs, or even if you have any questions regarding my books or for my Udemy courses, so you could just quickly reach out to me on my Twitter handle at the rate Rahul Sahay 19. So all social handles are listed here. So don't worry about this, because at the end of this session I will be sharing the code with you guys, and this slide will also be getting shared with you guys. So you can anytime get to me if you have any questions. So you can ask me on my EMA link, and which is ask me anything basically, and then I am there to help you with that or assist you with that your questions. Having said that, let's get started. And the as we discussed, like in today's agenda, we are going to have this clean architecture, and we'll be starting from the blank slate, and then we'll be applying microservices on top of that. But before that, let's understand that, like what is clean architecture and why this was required, first of all. So we have been traditionally doing this layered architecture, which is n-layered architecture. And so what's the problem with that particular architecture? So let's understand that first. So with layered architecture, you can see that database is at the center of that, at the center, which means all dependencies point towards the database, which means like with it becomes data driven architecture, basically. With domain centric architecture, domain and use cases are at central, and other languages like presentation persistence are just details here. Domain is at the center of the application, encapsulated in, let's say, application layer, and all dependencies point towards domain itself. So having said that, let's now look at few domain centric architecture. One more point I wanted to talk to you guys, like I have switched off my video purposely so that you guys can have full access to this canvas, like what I'm talking to, without any distraction. My face is not that important, rather than this content is important, so you can think from that perspective. That's why I switched off my video here. So the very first thing which comes into this picture is like hexagonal architecture. So first we have Alistair Cockburn hexagonal architecture. It's let's say it's a layered architecture with the application layer domain at the center of the architecture. In a way, it's a plugin architecture which includes ports and adapters, right? So here, outer layer of the architecture adopting the inner layer of the application through various presentation, persistence, and external systems. You can run and test the entire system without UI dependency or database or any external dependency. And next come we have is onion architecture, which is again we have uh, recommendation by Jeffrey Palermo. So this is let's say a domain at the center, surrounded by application layer itself, which you can see, and the outer layers consist of a thin UI as presentation layer, test, and infrastructure, which includes persistence as well, let's say, right? And in addition, all dependencies point towards center of the architecture, which means no inner layer knows about the outer layer. Once again, this application can be tested without any UI or database or any external dependency. So the clean architecture, now you can think of clean architecture. Finally, which we have is the recommendation from Uncle Bob, which is once again, it's, let's say it's a domain that is at the core, which is entities here, and being the focal point of the entire system, right? Now domain layer is surrounded by an application layer, which is nothing but the use cases here. Now outer layer consists of ports and adapters, adapting to the application core to the external dependencies via controllers itself, and it may be via controllers or gateways and presenters. In addition, Uncle Bob has gone one step ahead by incorporating Eva Jacobson's BEC architecture pattern to explain how the presentation layer and application layer should be wired up, right? So all of these architectures have roughly of the same benefits, which you can see here, which Mark Siemens pointed out in his paper, wherein his all of these domain centric architecture just focusing on different aspects of the same key set of ideas. Basically, essentially they all put domain model at the center, wrap it in application layer, which involves use cases, adapts the application to the implementation details, and all dependencies should point to um, inverts to the domain itself. So now the point comes here is why we want to use domain centric architecture. So it basically focuses on domain, which is basically center focal point of the architecture, means it's going to have less coupling between domain logic and implementation details. This also means the system becomes more flexible and adaptable, and uh, that means like we can easily evolve this architecture over time. And it is going to help you with with DDD pattern quite a lot, which is domain driven design, and that is a great set of a strategy which is being recommended by Eric Evans in his book. So I personally recommend this particular book. Like, you should refer that domain driven design book by Eric Evans, and you need to see that what are the architectures is recommended there. Now what is the cons from this architecture, what I can think of, what I think particularly with this thing is like you need to know domain very well, as after this only you can decide that what classes will go in domain and what will go in that application layer itself, right? Now the next thing which comes here is a high level dependency diagram of ordering system. Let's say you have been seeing this e-commerce system quite a lot whenever there is a talk about microservices, or somebody is explaining any kind of architecture. And here I have also thought to explain you from that particular context. So what I have done here is I have taken the ordering API example, and just put that particular thing as part of project dependency on this PPT itself. So you can see here like how ordering API is being the front end of this, or of the system, which is deriving this towards the inner layer and towards the domain itself, and via application infrastructure and towards core. And as part of, let's say, microservices, this is putting some sort of messaging in that message broker, which is event bus RabbitMQ. And let's say some third party service, let's say basket API or any other microservice which is subscribed to this particular queue. So this is going to consume that particular messaging from there. So this is all about how microservices are communicating with each other. So but that's okay. What we are going to stick to that is like on this particular part, like how do we scaffold clean architecture, and how do we get started from there. So for simplicity, I further broke this down into, let's say, movie API system, and here we are going to scaffold this each and every layer right from the scratch, and we'll try to put the logic, it's make it workable, and put some infrastructure code to make it more microservices compliant structure. So this is the agenda for today's talk. So having discussed on that particular aspects. Let's get started with demo itself. And for that I'm going to start with clean slate. So let's open Visual Studio. So let's create first of all blank solution itself. So what I'm going to do here is let's create a new project, and here I'm going to select the template itself. Let's say blank solution, and here is the blank solution, and let's give it some location, and here is my AzConf where I like to save this, and this being movies solution, and let's create that, and it will take some time to get created. Alright, so looks like it got created, and what I'm going to do here is cell processing. Okay, I'm going to add a couple of projects over here. So the very first projects I'm going to drop in here is like, let's say movies API. So let's say it is ASP.NET Core uh, project, and here I'm going to put that in here, and here I'm going to say that movies dot API, and then let's move ahead, and now here I'm going to keep the default settings as is, and let's go ahead and create that one. So it will take a while, little while, to get the template created and everything in place. So now let's close this, and let's go ahead and create another one, and here, okay, so it's building, so let it build that one. Now let's add another project here, and let's call it the class library project, and here I'm going to, let's put that movies dot infrastructure. So here is that, and next thing which I'm going to create is movies dot core, let's say. So this is my class library project. Let's go next, and let's put that movies dot core. Now let's create one more, which is called movies dot application. Movies dot application. Okay, so now it's created. Let's get rid of all these default classes which we have here. We won't be needing here anything like that, and we'll be dropping our own, we'll be creating our own stuff here. So we have created all the required project structure. We have this API, we have application, we have core, we have infrastructure as well. Now let's resolve the dependencies at very first place. So what I'm going to do here is project references, right? So I will click the project reference. Since this is API, so it is going to know all the projects underneath of that, so all the inner layers, which is nothing but application, core, and infrastructure. That's why I'm adding these references over here, and now that application layer is there, and core, so core layer is not going to know about any other layers, but infrastructure is going to know about the core layer. So let's add this project dependency, and let's say add project reference of core layer here. Now my application layer is going to know about my core and infrastructure both. So this is all about how the dependencies are moving towards domain, and outer layer knows about the inner layer. So that is what I have done here. Now to get started with that, now I like to add some NuGet packages. So the very first thing which I like to drop here uh, uh, in infrastructure is like these NuGet packages which we are going to use that, and this is all about like entity framework design, core, and tooling of that. So I'm just dropping that, and application project dependencies is going to be something like this. Since core is pure C sharp functions, it is going to stay there, so I'm not adding any dependencies there. And as part of best practices, we should avoid adding any dependencies there. And I'll be adding, let's say CQRS design pattern also here. So for that, I'm just adding a mediator pattern here in application. Now comes is the you know API project dependencies, which is this one. And for API project dependencies, what I'm going to do here is just replace this with this guy. And now this is okay. So I think everything is resolved now, and let's close that. And before proceeding further, let's build it and let's see that everything is fine. So build 4 succeeded, and so now we are good to go ahead with that. And the very first thing what I'm going to do here is like we'll be starting with core itself. And here in core, when I say that, we'll be creating our entities folder. So let's go ahead and create that. As in domain we have entities, so here in clean architecture we call this as entities. And here we'll be creating base entity also, like so this is how I like to scaffold the solution. And here in that base, I basically prefer to create you know it's entity class, which is driven by my entity base itself. So that is what we are going to see next. So let's create that first. So here my entity base is there, and entity base is going to be implementation of that. And this is how it is going to look like. So entity base is going to look like something like this. So here it is going to be like public and not class. I'm going to have this interface. And this entity base is I'm going to substitute the ID here. I mean, just trying to be more pragmatic in terms of ID substitution, because let's say you are switching to any other data adapter, and there your ID being a string, so that you can substitute by supplying that itself. So here what I'm going to do is let's say TID itself, and ID is going to be get itself, and that is what I'm saying here. Now entity base here, right? Entity base is going to inherit from my, and that I like to create as an abstract thing, because I'm going to implement this further. And this is going to be a common property which is part of my entities itself. So here what I'm doing is like I'm going to create that let's say TID, and here I need to implement entity base of TID itself, right? And let's implement the missing member here. So now I can mark this guy as virtual so that I can override that. And I also like to make this protected set, so that in the derived class I can set this guy. And this is basically going to come from there. So here in this derived classes, this is the entity class which is going to come here. And that is also going to be my abstract class. So this is all about the base representation of entity itself, which I am trying to achieve here, right? And think of these things like from framework perspective, nothing to do from clean architecture. This is all about like how you are supplying the values here. So what I'm supplying here is my int as being my TID. So in this case I'm considering that it is going to be of integer type, but for different data adapters you can think of applying a string or something like that. So that way it has become a pretty generic code, right? So now entities part is done. Now let's create one class over here. Let's say I like to create something like a movie movie here, right? So for that I'm going to create movie class itself, and here what I'm going to do is like here I'm going to drop certain properties just in the interest of time. And this is going to be my, let's say, properties which I'm going to interact with. And once this is done, so I can just close all these tabs as this is getting little PC over here. And now the next thing which I'm going to create is one new folder, and that is going to hold my repositories, right? So this is what I'm trying to implement here. And again, this repository is where I like to put my generic implementation under base, so that's why I'm creating base here. And I'm going to say that in that, let's say, create new item, and here interface, and let's say create I repository, right? And this is going to have all the generic CRUD related thing will be sitting here. So here of course I'm going to drop certain attributes uh, of this interface, and that is what I would like to then try to resolve it, right? So I have this I repository of T can be substituted with any entity. So let's say in this case it's movie, or if you are extending further, then it could be movie review also. So that is all about that, the base thing. Now let's say you like to implement something which is more specific to iMovie itself. So there what you can do is I can create a new item, and I can just say iMovie repository itself, right? And this is done. And in this iMovie repository, I'm basically what I'm going to do here is like I'm going to inherit from that I repository itself. And here I am going to supply that let's say movie itself, right? So that way it is clear, like what is my intention is. Now what I'm going to do here is like is, let's say I like to create some signature out of that, and let's say I like to drop something like some custom operation, and which is nothing but, let's say, this guy, where I'm getting movie by director name itself, right? And having said that, what we'll be doing here now, let's see what is the complaint about. um, Unused interface. Now let's see that one. Now let's see what this error is all about. Like it says that get rid of this unused interface. Okay, so looks like what I have done here is in entity base, sorry, in entity it's not movie entity. Here I need to drive it from entity itself. That's how I'm going to supply my ID over here, right? So now this is getting ID over from here, and now this guy can take movie from here, I repository, it will go. Now this is fixed now. So now if we just go ahead and build this app, so this should be fine. Now let's look at now. So what we have done here is we have created this core layer. Now let's move ahead and let's implement this infrastructure layer. So we need to implement that infrastructure layer, and for that here what we are going to need is first of all data folder. So let's say create our data related stuff in this data folder, and here what I'm going to create first of all is the db context, and let's add a class. And for that one, let me just add this as movie context itself, and that movie context is going to be it's pretty similar of any entity framework code which you can think of, like. So that's what I am going to put that here. And these are pretty normal thing which we have been doing on daily basis almost. So I'm not getting into details of these things, like what I am infrastructure related thing I am dropping here. So this is pretty much more self-explanatory here. So I'm just trying to stick to that, you know, the fact, like how to scaffold this with clean architecture, then how to apply these things over here in this clean architecture pattern, that microservices. Now I like to drop one db set here, and that db set is nothing but my let's say movie in this class, and then I like to say movies itself, and now it is done. Now I am also going to need that let's say one class for seeding that. So let's say movie context seed would be fine. And here what I'm going to do here is, like, I'm going to drop some infrastructure code just to make sure that it is going to seed those values, right? So for that, let's do that, and let's just drop this code and resolve the dependencies over here. So here I am just seeding that, and now everything looks fine. So now just let's save that. So here what I'm doing is I'm just seeding these values over here so that we can have something to play with when we get started. Now let's close this all tabs over here, and what I'm going to do is just close all tabs, and here I'm going to add a repository. So add new folder called repositories. So and then what I'm going to do here is I like again to follow the same pattern over here, and like what we have done is like with base. So this is going to be my base, and here it will be implementation of I repository, which is going to be repository dot cs itself, and let's say, and here I'm going to implement that my generic code, and which is nothing but the implementation of that itself, my CRUD level, high level logic. So let me just drop some code here. So here what I'm doing here is, this is the generic implementation of my CRUD thing, which you can see here. Now here T can be, let's say, movie review if you are extending further. So that is what you can substitute it with further entities also. And this is nothing but more generic code towards entity framework CRUD operations. So there is no rocket science over here. Now let's close this, collapse this base thing, and let's create the one which is which we will be needing here. Let's say for custom operation, let's say movie repository. So that is what I'm going to drop next, and so this is what movie repository is, and here let's say I'm just going to have this public, and now in movie repository I'm going to have this, let's say I'm going to implement like first of all repository of movie, what I'm going to supply here. So and here I'm just going to supply so that I can have all the base stuff of that, uh, and then I'm going to say this iMovie repository, and then let's say implement that missing member, and then finish that guy, right? So this is how I am in going to utilize this movie context over here. And now here let's drop some logic. Let's say what I'm going to do here is from movie context itself, I'm going to go inside movies, and I'm just going to say like if m goes to m, and if m dot director name, let's say, equals director name, then you just go and go ahead and just return me that particular list itself, and that's what I'm doing here. and it's complaining because I didn't mark this as async. That's what the requirement over here is. So now it's done. Let's get rid of unused things over here. So my repository is also done. That means I'm also done with my infrastructure. I'm also done with my core. Now the next thing which comes here is the application layer. Just before moving in there, let's build everything and just make sure that everything is working fine. So now let's collapse this and let's get inside this infrastructure, sorry, application layer, and let's implement things here. And this is the place where I'm going to segregate things from queries to commands, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to uh, first of all create a couple of folders, which is going to mean for the segregation itself. So let's say I am going to have this commands which is going to create let's say movie there, or I'm going to have a for query also. So for that I'm going to put like queries, and then I'm going to have handlers as well. So this is for CQRS pattern, like how do you going to handle this. So this is going to handlers, and I'm also going to need this mappers so that I can map with my DTOs. And now my mediator pattern is going to need responses also. So now let's create a responses folder as well. Right, so these are the things which I wanted to create at first place, so I created that. So now let's get started with command itself. And the command thing is via which you are going to issue a command to this underneath, and what you are going to tell, like you are your intention is basically to create a new record over there in the DB. So let's go ahead and create that. So let's first of all, I am going to name this is with let's say create movie command. And I'm moving little fast just in the interest of time, so that I can conclude all the things which I wanted to show it here, and that's what I'm trying to achieve here. And here that is going to be of I request itself. And when I say I request, so it needs to come from the mediator itself. So let's have that. And so let's see that what's I hope that it was there, but looks like it's not resolving that mediator. Now let me just see whether, and it is going to need some kind of response. So I'm just creating this movie response, and this, let's see that whether I have installed. Okay, I thought like I installed that one. Let's quickly have that. So there's already there, then why it's not taking. Anyways, let's click on this and let's see. Looks like I need to restart that. So 1 second. Yeah, so now it has come, and here you can see that I have applied that one. And now the thing is like that I need to create that response also, right? So for that thing, but before that, it is going to take that entity itself, and that we can take it from our entity itself, and that is nothing but sorry, not with the entity, with the movie which we created. And this is what you are going to receive from front end. And from front end I mean like let's say you are going to receive it from your API, and that is what it is. And let's create a response which is going to have. And now let's put that thing here. And this is the response which we are going to have that. And this is also going to be more or less the same thing, but it is going to have the ID. So only thing is like I'm going to have it like this. Having said that, so my create movie command, I can just import this. Now it is fine, and now it looks okay to me. And now what we can do is, whenever this is going to come as a creational part, like something needs to be created, it needs to hand it over to handler. So we need to create a handler for that, and that is called comes is here is like create movie handler. And we need to create let's say a class for that, and I'm going to say this create movie handler. And now this guy needs to you know take this I request handler, and here it is going to say that create movie handler, and then it is going to apply this movie response. And so you can see that in signature part as well. And now let's not like this. And now what we have this create movie handler, and here I have taken this sorry, not handler, create movie command basically. Right now I go ahead and implement that and implement missing member. So with that I'm going just to have apply this thing. So let's say where I'm going to have this movie entity, and I will be mapping this with my let's say movie mapper itself. So before that let's create with because it needs to be mapped with your DTO, right? So your entity. So let's go ahead and create a mapper over here, and again in that mapper I'm going to create a movie mapper. So this is all about auto mapper, how it works. And now these are the things which is you know some of the infrastructure things which we have been using since many years. So I don't think that I need to explain these things over here, like how automapper works or what is the mapping profile it is going to be, since I created mapper. And I need to create a mapping profile also. So let's make it like movie mapping profile. This is basically I am using for mapping your entity, my entity with my DTO itself. That in this case is the response object itself, and it needs to be you know um, come with this profile. And then here I will be creating map for like how do I want to map the objects. And here I would like to say that it's going to be with movie response. And let's do this reverse map, I mean both ways. Now let's do that create map for command as well. So this is going to be let's say create movie command, and let's do reverse map for this as well. Having said, now it looks okay to me. Now let's go ahead and now what I'm going to do here in create movie handler, I'm just going to do that movie mapper dot mapper and dot map. And here I'm going to supply that my entity name is movie, and then that request which I'm getting here, which is the create movie command. Now just a small check here, in case if movie entity is let's say null, so we can throw some application exception, and we can put some logic for this exception details also. And here like so here we can say that there is an issue with mapping maybe. And then let's go ahead and create this new movie, and that's what I'm creating here. And let's say await, and that's going to need my infrastructure itself, and that is where I am going to require this iMovie repository, and let's create that, and let's have one field over here. So, and also make this guy async, because I'll be having all async await thing, and that's what it needs to await on. So let's do that movie repository dot add async. So this is coming from your repository itself, like what we have created earlier, and this is going to take my entity, which is nothing but movie entity here. And now what I'm going to get is, let's say, movie response, right? And it is going to do something like this: movie mapper.map, and here I am going to map it movie response itself, because this is what my expectation is. And now I will just supply this new movie over here, and then I can just return this movie response. So that's it. So now this looks okay to me. And now just build this guy, and let's see if everything is fine. So looks fine. So now we have created this movie handler for that command itself. Now let's go ahead and complete that query part as well. So for query part, what I'm going to do here is, uh, let's create one class here to handle that. And let's create a class with, let's say, get movies by director name query, because this is the custom thing which we have written in our um, repository, movie repository itself, right? So here again it is going to take something like I request, and here it is going to take I enumerable of my movie response itself, which we have created. And that's how it is going to be. And I'm going to need one prop here, which is going to say for this director name. So let's just simply create that. And I think we are doing good on time, so that's I'm fine with that. And here in this constructor, I'm just going to supply this, that director name itself, let's say, and that being like this guy. Now this looks okay to me. Now, as a best practice, I like to avoid putting any date code. Now for this query, again we are going to need one handler. So now let's go ahead and create one handler, which and give it some proper name. And what I'm going to do here is, let's add one new class, and let's give it some name here. And get movie by director name handler makes sense. And we are how naming convention works here, like we try to be more pragmatic with our naming itself, like whatever naming which you are giving, try to be put more emphasis on that, like what it is doing, by looking at the name itself. So any developers who is working in your project, who's getting onboarded, right, so he should know, like what is the responsibility of this class, and by just looking at the name itself. So that's why I'm trying to be more, put more emphasis on the naming convention itself. So again, now it is going to need that I request handler, and which is this one, and it is going to take our um, get movies by director name query itself, and it is going to return I enumerable of movie response, which is movie response, which is this guy. And let's do this, and let's close this, and let's go ahead and implement this guy. So what I'm going to do here is, I will simply implement missing members, and now it looks okay. And here we are also going to need that infrastructure, so that I can you know request down that. And let's create one movie repository and then introduce read only field, and here I'm going to have that thing in place. So let's say where movie list, which I'm going to fetch from that, and let's put that thing as async. And here what I'm going to apply is that await on that. And now let's apply this, and here we need to supply the director name itself, and which is I'm going to get it from that request itself, and here is my director name. Right now, then let's say I'm getting this movie response list, right? And this response list is going to look something like, and I need to map that then. So let's have this movie mapper in, and then mapper dot map, and here I need to apply that my type itself here. So I'm going to say like IEnumerable of, let's say, a movie response, and here I'm just going to say that movie list. Right, makes sense. Now this thing I can just simply return that. So this is what my expectation is, because I'm just expecting this to be a movie response type, right, from that movie list. So that's what I'm mapping in here and just trying to get that piece out of here. Right, so we have what we have done here. Let's look at in the solution explorer. We have created handlers. We have created handlers for both, like in this case it's for query and command. Then what we have done is we also have the response which is talking here. So more or less we are done with this application layer. So now let's go ahead and build this guy, and let's see that how it's doing. So it's building fine, and now what I'm going to do here is in the API project, and in the API project I'm just going to get rid of some of the scaffolded code, which is the boilerplate code, and now let's collapse this guy, and now let's come here and let's get rid of this, and let's start from a startup itself. Now the very first thing which I'll be doing here in a startup is like I already dropped all the infrastructure related to my like mediator. Needs to be implemented here, versioning here, Swagger, and other related SQL related stuff. So that needs to be implemented. Now what I like to do here is close other tabs first of all, and let's save this. And what I'm going to do is um, let's drop some infrastructure code over here, right? And when I say that infrastructure code, it is all the things which is related to my movie context, SQL Server, Swagger, and automapper, mediator, my dependency injections for my repository. So that is what I dropped here. And then I also wanted to use this Swagger, so I like to add this at the bottom of use, and here I have added that. So I'm done with all the infrastructure piece here, and more or less my startup is ready, and all the thing which I need to do here is I need to create this guy connection strings. So for that connection strings, what I can do here is like I can simply come here and create one properties called connection string, and I can just drop in that thing because I'll be running, let's say, with Docker itself. So what I'll be doing here is I'll be running on port 1445, let's say, and that is what is getting mapped with SQL on my host machine, and that I'm going to name this as MovieDB, and user ID is, let's say, as a system administrator itself, and password is going to be docker@1. Having said that, now let's go ahead and create the controller piece of that. So in that controller, first of all, I'm going to create that let's say base controller, which I usually name this as API controller. And that's what my base controller is doing. And now here I'm going to put my API versioning and API controller route related stuff over here, and that needs to get you know inherited from controller base. And having said that, I will now create a my actual controller, and which is called, let's say, movie controller itself, right, in order to drive this application. Now this movie controller needs to inherit from API controller, and now here my entire logic can go inside. So what movie controller is doing is, here I am going to inject this my mediator, right? So what here I'm going to need that iMediator reference, and let's have this mediator. Let's create one read-only field. Now from here, I'm going to request both get and post, and from here we can do that bifurcation, whether it's a read query or write query, right? I mean write command. So that we can do from here. So if you see here, what I have done here is, like, I'm just let's say this is my get request. It is going to get by director name, and then I am putting this by get movie by director name query, right? And this, if you have seen that, this is what my this query is, like what we have created in that application layer itself, right? This is what it is like. This is query. It is going to need your director name, and that is what you are applying in that in your controller. And when not this orders, so here what I'm going to say is, let's say result itself, and now let's return this result, right? And this makes more sense because what is order here? Nothing, right? So now what I'm going to say that, like, this has returning me that query result, and similarly here this result is going to get applied to my command itself, right? So which is mediator.send, which it is getting from body, like what you are entering, let's say from form or from Swagger itself. So here in this case we'll be testing with Swagger, both these pieces. Now having said that, now I need to migrate my seed methods also. So for that, what I will do here, I will start with the program file itself, and in the program file I'm just going to have this thing in place, like first of all I'm just going to say that host equals, and then I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm just going to say, let's say create and seed db would be my one infrastructure method. So let's go ahead and drop this one private method over here, and so this is what my private method is going to do here, and this is going to create a scope. And for that, it is going to create the scope with, let's say, movie context. It is getting this required service. Now have that thing in here, like it is going to need this movie context and the logger factory. That's why I have used this logger factory as well, and in case of any exception I'm just putting it here. So this is just as part of best practice. You can think of applying that one. And here what I'm going to do here is, let's say create and cdb async. So this is what my method is. So for that, okay, so I don't need to apply on void, so I will be saying on task main itself, and then create and seed db, and it is going to need the host to resolve the underlying lying services, and then I can just simply say host dot run. Now the next thing which I am going to do is open my PowerShell window and run this container for SQL, and that I will be running in the background, and then I'll be running my app. So before that, let's go ahead and build that thing, and let's see if everything is on on the right node. Okay, so now let's open this PowerShell window. So let's say Windows PowerShell run as admin. It entirely depends. I usually prefer like that. And let's just do like this. And here I'm mapping port 1433, which is default port, to 1455, and as a password is I'm supplying docker at the rate 1, and I'm accepting this end user license agreement, just like more used usual things, and I'm running in detached mode. So it has returned me this SHA value, that means which is up and fine. And it is also saying that there is a dev version of my API is also running, so I don't need that right now. So what I can do here is I can just get rid of that. So let's say, and let's get rid of that forcibly. And now let's go ahead and let's try to run this guy. Let's switch that context to movies.api. Also I like to shift to this startup thing here, and here I like to say that this swagger is going to be my default, and let me replace everywhere, because I'm not going to use weather forecast as I get rid of that. And now when I click on this play button, so it should come, and let's wait for a second, and it should be, yeah, it's running fine. It is coming with the swagger, and it is. Now let's try to get that and try it out, and I need to apply this director name over here. Now what is this director name? Because I have applied for that particular query here, so version I can say yes. And what I can do here is I can simply go to, let's say, SQL Server Management Studio, and I can see whether the data has been migrated successfully or not from that context sheet. Now here you can see that I am using localhost comma 1445. One point to note is comma, right? It's not semicolon. And then SA administrator password what you have given while running a container. So let's connect that, and it is connected, and here movie DB has been created. Now let's look at the table. Now if you see the table here, so here I can see that top 1000 rows. If I select, so here I have all the records here. So now let's select one of the director name, let's say James Cameron, and let's apply over here. And when I do execute over here, so I can see that it is working fine, and I can see my records are coming fine over here. Let's go ahead and post something new here, and let's try this out as well. And let's say movie name is it conf itself, and our movie name is, let's say, clean architecture maybe, and director name, let's say, is it conf, right? And then what I can do here is, let's say this is 2020 maybe. Oops, not save. So 2020, and then now let's try putting some breakpoint over here. And what we can do here is we can come to this command handler, so create movie handler. Let's try putting this breakpoint, and let's see like how this is getting executed. And having said that, if I just go ahead and just execute this, so it has reached to my breakpoint, and it is where it is taken the request, and I can go ahead and see that request what's coming in here. Now my movie entity is there, so if with all the values, and now it will go ahead and create that. Now let's go ahead and quickly look the DB, and if I just execute this, so it is coming fine. That means if I can retrieve this with AzConf also. So this is all about clean architecture what we have seen here, and in this particular demo, like how to use this clean architecture and how to get started with that, and then how to apply microservices on top of that. I hope you would have liked this particular session, and feel free to give me feedback like if you have any, and also enjoy the next sessions. Thank you.